Well, good morning, good evening, early good morning, wherever you are. Hi there. Thanks for joining us. And good morning, Milbillie. Good evening, Dr. Silkman. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. First of all, did you like the thumbnail for today's video?
Yes.
Have you seen that before?
I've seen that picture. I can't recall where it's from.
Right. Obviously, it's Tom Selleck, isn't it? The famous actor.
Wow.
Cherry Bean, right?
Well, let's check and find that, shall we? Here we go. Let's see who it is, because that was the. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's see if I can make that a bit bigger. That was the thumbnail one, and he does look just like, doesn't he? Just looks like Tom Selleck.
Yep.
Now
he looks like a mafia hitman.
He does, and do you know why he's got the moustache? Do you know why he wore the moustache back then?
No.
I do.
Yeah, go for it, Milbillie.
Well, it's only because he tweeted it. He says he grew the mustache out because he prefer that the people that he was representing would want an older person representing him than him looking younger. So he grew a stash.
Good on you, Jerry. We like Jerry, don't we? I've got a couple of things sort of recently to share with you. First of all, you remember I've done some videos where I've been on a walk with my daughter's dog.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So my daughter's dog is called Nap, and his father works on a farm and is called Wilson. And here is a graph that the farmer sent me the other day. This is Wilson. He is now working from home. Also, very good idea over there in Egypt. The government in Egypt has instructed the city's taxi drivers to drive around Cairo sounding their car horns. It's hoped that a return to familiar city sounds will help restore calm following the pandemic. Operation Toot and Calm will last for a week.
That's a real blast there, Paul.
Yeah. Now, one more that struck me. Poor old Marty Pello, diagnosed with arthritis. He told reporters, "I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my toes."
Oh no! Oh no!
Sorry about that. That was just stuff that I'd come across. Listen, just before you joined us, Doctor, because of my fault, I must hasten to add, I had got my times wrong for Adelaide, which is on a slightly different time clock to Sydney, because it's slightly.
And Melbourne.
Yes, yeah, that's right. You're west of Melbourne, even, aren't you?
Yeah, we're further down south, so I think there's a half an hour time difference.
Yeah, and I completely forgot about that. So I do apologise. Now, we've been discussing obviously the Adelaide Crows, but today I thought seeing as we've got Milbillie, we'll ask him, how did the Packers get on last night?
They won. They beat the Saints.
Yeah.
What was it? 37-30.
Yeah. And there was Sandy Greenman, the oracle when it comes to American football, reckoned that the Packers would lose to the Saints, but they are now unbeaten after 3 games, aren't they?
Yep.
And there's only one other team that's got that record in their division, as it were.
Yeah.
And that's the Go Packers and F the Bears.
Yes, as Charlie Barons would say.
Yes. Now, but also we were mentioning about the other very popular team in Wisconsin. The baseball team is the Milwaukee Brewers, and they have. You were saying that they've reached the is it the playoffs?
Yeah, they lost yesterday against the St. Louis Cardinals, and from what I understand, they both made the playoffs.
Right.
Ooh.
Right.
But I really don't care about sports right now. To be honest, after everything that's going on, this election here and COVID. I mean, yeah, it's good to keep your eyes, but I really don't hear anything about sports. I don't hear people talking about it. I mean, the playoffs, the finals are about to start now. They both got both teams, the Heat and the Lakers. From what I hear, golf is more popular on TV ratings than any other sport.
Yeah. Just one final question though, because of what we were discussing earlier. We mentioned that the Brewers have, as you were saying, qualified, and I said, by the way, do you remember there was a player for the Milwaukee Brewers with the surname of Kratz?
Yep.
And you actually said yes, there was.
Yes, first baseman.
And then you even mentioned that you had a car once that the previous owner was a Kratz.
Yeah, that's true.
And I've done a bit of research on the surname Kratz. Do you know where the surname, what the meaning is of the surname Kratz? No, it means the ancient sort of meaning of it is somebody that pulls wool, a wool carder. I mean, how appropriate for Kratz, somebody who pulls or tries to pull wool over people's eyes. Anyway, I think that's the, I think Milbillie wants to avoid the sport because he certainly doesn't want me asking him about Tottenham. So we will not talk about the Adelaide Crows, the Port Adelaide, Tottenham, or anything like that. But one final thing, I did watch an absolutely brilliant game of cricket yesterday in the Indian Premier League between the Rajasthan Royals and the Kings 11 Punjab. Now, why is that of interest? Because there are so many, both English and Australian players playing in that. And your boy, Steve Smith, is the captain of the Rajasthan Royals. And it was an absolutely amazing game of cricket. Steve Smith played really well. And they ended up winning. So
sorry, Paul, you know that those players make millions of dollars by playing, what is it, about a handful of games?
Yeah. The only problem is that for these young men, they are now, because of the COVID bubbles, they are struggling. Apparently, the England fast bowler, Jofra Archer, is apparently finding it very difficult, having to live in these so-called bubbles, which is understandable. But anyway, just keep playing, and we'll keep watching. Anyway, so enough about sport, and I really don't want to keep you too long today, mainly because two reasons. I'm very, very close to my StreamYard limit, but also because it means I can invite you back again. You see, that's the
really
that's the thing here. You see, so I'm just going to ask Milbillie basically on your thoughts on because we've been covering, obviously you can go by the thumbnail, Jerry Buting. Your thoughts on, with the benefit of hindsight, do you think there are things that Jerry Buting would have done differently in this case?
Yeah, if he was allowed to do it.
Yeah.
He speaks upon it all the time. Like, they weren't able to do things they normally would have done.
Yeah. I was thinking in particular, though, I thought, much as I dislike and have a total, disdain for Ken Kratz, he pulled an unbelievable trick on Dean and Jerry by not bringing the cabinet into the courtroom, didn't he? Because you're left with Jerry having to say, is it all right if I drop the key? And I think you said, he should have just dropped it.
Well, why do you think Kratz wanted to use computer-generated images instead of? Most murder trials, like especially this, why didn't they bring the jury to his house?
Yeah,
this horrendous crime took place, and no evidence.
Yeah, that would have been a stunner, wouldn't it?
No blood anywhere. You slit her throat on the bed, and then everything they say happened didn't.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, let's face it. Apparently, Teresa Holbach was very fit. You know, strong. She was a baseball coach, wasn't she?
Volleyball.
You know, volleyball. Sorry, yeah. You know, I mean, you know, a fit. You know, okay. Yes. You know, she's a girl, a young woman, but she would have put up a struggle. There would have been damage. There would have been damage if somebody had tried to, you know, attack her in the bedroom. In the trailer, in the bedroom. Yeah. Okay. So getting on to my questions before we carry on with a bit more about the lawyers, if that's all right, and I'll get both of your opinions on this. And my first question would be that, bearing in mind that at the trial, Ken Kratz would only spend 20 seconds on these bones because they were only possible human, the best experts in the world. Did you get a call asking your opinion on this? I doubt it, you know. So you know, this best experts in the world business is always bothered me. But anyway, you know, is it an admission that the bones are Teresa by the state by handing them back to the Holbachs? Is that an admission that they know that these bones belong to Teresa?
Where were the locations where all the bones that were given back from? They came from the 3 piles.
Yeah, 3 different places. But as I say,
do you know where that is?
In the Manitowoc County gravel pit, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, have you got? I suspect Milbillie has got his Google Earth all wired up, ready to go. Is that right, Milbillie? Is that what you're about to do now?
I can get it ready.
Excellent. Doctor, your thoughts. Is it an admission that they know the bones are Teresa?
Yes and no. Yes and no. The important thing to realize that a lot of people don't realize is that no bones have been tested, right?
Yeah.
No bones have been tested for DNA. The only thing that has been tested is a piece of muscle flesh from a bone known as item BZ.
Right.
And there were actually several muscle tissues that were found. The muscle tissue was stuck to a bone, and there were several pieces of muscle tissue. One piece went to the FBI. One piece went to Cherie Cohen. And the FBI actually did try to extract DNA from the bones, but said that the DNA quality was so low that or so bad that they actually couldn't come up with a genetic profile. So the important thing to realize is that no bones have been tested, right? So we're not definitive of whose cremains they actually belong to, strictly speaking.
Is it absolutely imperative that these bones be tested to find out whose they are?
Yes.
Can we assume that they are Teresa's?
No, because back in 2005, the law stipulated that you needed a 15 out of 15 loci match.
Right.
Cherie Cohen was only able to obtain a 7 out of 15 loci match, which meant that there was a 1 in a billion chance that that genomic profile had belonged to somebody else, right?
Right.
So if I worked it out, there were 7 people on the planet that had that genetic profile of 7 out of 15 loci. So if you remember in the court, Cherie Cohen quoted quintillion, huge numbers, to ensure that a genomic profile was unique. So therefore, the 7 out of 15 loci profile was not unique. Now, the FBI demand much tighter stringent. They demand 20 loci. So yes, the bones needed to have been tested.
Could could there have been, unknown to us, some developments whereby the state by 2011 had been given new information that these bones now were Teresa's?
Well, there's a possibility, and that is that clandestine testing was done on the bones. In other words, either Cherie Cohen or somebody else was able to use a more sensitive techniques and was able to obtain a full genomic profile on the bone fragments and said, these cremains do belong to Teresa Halbach. But they never published it, right? They kept it quiet because, remember, there were new techniques being developed all the time, Paul. And the latest one was the anti-rapid DNA technique, which is very, very sensitive, especially for burn victims, right? Yeah. And that way, by giving away the bones, Kathleen Zellner was not in a position to have them retested.
Sure.
And that pelvic bone was in pile 1.
Sorry, excellent. I mean, I was asking slightly mischievously that obviously that particular question, because to me it seems as if they have simply got together and have decided they knew all along that the bones are Teresa's, and as a result of that, if we assume that they knew that they were Teresa's and it wasn't through some sort of special testing, not only do they know that they were Teresa's, but they would know what happened to her.
Well, I think they knew what happened to the victim. The key point here, Paul and Milbillie, is the fact that the state's forensic anthropologist said that all the cremains had come from one victim, right?
Yes.
So when they tested item BZ and they got a 7 out of 15 loci match,
but
it was highly suggestive.
Did they pull DNA from every single bone they found?
No.
How do they know all comes to one person?
They don't.
Exactly.
They don't. That is the shenanigans that the state pulled, right?
They only had to convince 12 people.
Yeah.
Correct. And when Cherie Cohen quotes numbers like, 1 in a billion chance that it's not Teresa Halbach, and then starts to bring in all the other forensic evidence, it looks very persuasive, right? Yeah. But the other thing that the FBI did do is they did mitochondrial testing, right? And the mitochondrial testing could not rule out Teresa Halbach as being the person who deposited the cremains. So those cremains very likely belong to Teresa Halbach. Now, with mitochondria, you inherit your mitochondria from your mother, right? So it's maternally derived. And so they were able to determine the mitochondrial profile of Karen and the mitochondrial profile of the cremains, right? And they knew that Karen Halbach had this thing called heteroplasmy. It means that she had 2 pools of mitochondria in her cells, one that had one particular sequence and the other had another sequence. It just so happened that the cremains had the exact sequence as one of those pools from Karen Halbach. So the FBI said, right, we cannot exclude Teresa Halbach as being the person whose cremains are there. So there is a lot of molecular evidence to suggest that the cremains, item BZ, belongs to Teresa Halbach. And I agree with Milbillie. You need to test all the cremains in all 3 sites.
Right.
And I think the state got very nervous in 2011.
I took it as being that they simply handed back the bones because they'd been given a heads up that the Wisconsin Supreme Court, they're not going to take Steve's case. You can do what you like now with the evidence. As Sheriff Herman said to me once in a conversation, he stopped me midstream and said, look, Paul, let me tell you, Stephen Avery will spend the rest of his life in prison. And that's what they thought.
They were banking on that Stevens just lost. They lost his final appeal.
Yeah.
He doesn't have money to get a lawyer.
Yeah.
So nobody's going to take his case.
Yeah.
And if they do, they're going to want money.
Yeah.
Thankfully, just Kathleen Zellner comes along and does this pro bono.
Yep. Yep. Can I pop up on screen your computer screen, Milbillie, and you can just run us through some of the locations.
This is pile 1.
Yeah. These actually white things. They are wind towers, aren't they?
Yeah,
the
structures that the turbines sit on.
Yeah. Yeah. So the proximity to Steve's caravan. So Steve's caravan would be...
All right, from the pelvic bone site to that location, 2,713 feet.
Wow.
To Steve's trailer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, you hear them in the audio say that we got to expand the crime scene by 2 miles.
Wow.
Well, this is not even close to a mile. So where are they referencing to?
Yep.
So we got pile 1 right here.
Which is the closest to Steve's.
Yep. And then pile 2 and 3.
Yep.
Which is almost 4,000 feet.
Yep. And back then, do we know if there was more sort of woodland coverage of some of these areas?
No, it's all quarry.
It's all quarry, yeah.
Yep.
They were quarries, correct.
The only thing that's changed is this used to be a field.
Yeah.
The cornfield.
Yep.
Yeah.
With winter wheat growing out of it.
Yep. Which on the sort of left side of that, the bottom left corner is Cuss Road, isn't it? The little roundabout.
Right here.
The tree where it says tree stump.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you know, the one of the things that I suppose these hater guilters would say is that, oh well, Brendan Dassey said that some of the bones got thrown around.
Yeah, well,
that was close to the burn pit, wasn't it? That they got him to say that, that wasn't that wasn't put in a Roman catapult and firing them.
Like in Kratz's book, the one paragraph I've read of the whole thing, he tries to say that Stephen Avery threw bones in the quarry behind his house.
So you wanted to focus in on that, didn't you? I pressed the button just as you were focusing in. Sorry about that.
So he tries to say that he threw the bones over here.
Yeah.
Nothing was found over here.
Yeah.
No bones. There was a CDs, a necklace. I mean, their narrative has been blown out the water tenfold.
Sure.
Yeah. King Kratz is guessing and speculating completely.
Mm-hmm.
So, Milbillie, your assessment of this then, if law enforcement know that the remains of Teresa's, do they know what happened to her? Would that be the same question as I put to Dr. Silkman? Would that be a fair assumption that they know what happened to her?
They wouldn't have planted a car on the property unless they knew something happened to her. They wouldn't take that risk of them planting a car and then she turns up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my mind keeps going back to Mike Holbach with his grieving process. How does a family member who's the last one, families are the last ones to accept something's wrong. Why is he grieving? But why is it only for a matter of, it could be days?
It's one of those unknown things, Paul. I mean, people react differently. People also react differently when they're in front of the press.
The most epic most epic question asked to Mike is right after they found out the bones are hers, and they ask him, "So, what would happen if the bones weren't hers?" And his words exactly, "Oh, that'd be one big mess."
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I do.
Correct.
I do recall. I do recall hearing that. Yeah, and seeing that. Yeah, absolutely. Correct. It would be
the actual distribution of those bones represents a huge problem for the state's narrative, and that's why Ken Kratz did not want to talk about the cremains at the Manitowoc County gravel pit.
No.
And what joins all those sites, the burn pit, Yonder Burn Barrel number 2, and the Manitowoc County gravel pit, was that the bones were all fragmented, they were burnt, and they also had cut marks in them. So potentially you've got one pool of bones from one victim, and they've been distributed over a large geoloc, as Milbillie just pointed out. That's a huge distance, right? And the argument is, if Stephen had cremated Teresa Hallbach in one location, there's no way he's going to bring cremains back 10 feet from his back door, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the other thing is, which really screwed things up, was the mere fact of that several bones were located in Yonder Burn Barrel number 2. Right?
Yes.
So why on earth would Stephen put cremains in his own sister's burn barrel? Why not just scoop the whole lot, put them in a bucket, drive 50 miles somewhere, or chuck them in a river, and no one's going to find them?
Yeah.
It has all the hallmarks of someone dumping the cremains into the burn pit in order to set him up.
Yeah. And is it also a fair assumption that if in some of these burn piles, these cremains that are listed by Eisenberg, I think is it 72, 11, 12, 14, 16, 19
There's a lot
are
of
the
them.
ones that were handed back, but there are also specifically Eisenberg did identify some animal bone fragments. So it must be then that the actual burning of Teresa's dismembered body was in a barrel that had been used previously, and that's how there's a fragment of a deer.
Did you notice that one of them items on that list doesn't have case numbers for both like all the other ones do?
Right.
There's an evidence tag number and then a Calumet County Sheriff's Office tag that coincides with it. Public one doesn't have that.
Yep. If you're trying to sort out all the bones and you're trying to read Eisenberg's reports, forget it. You'll end up in rehab. It's extremely complex to try and find exactly what took place.
Oh, I've got a report. I've read it. It's like smoke and mirrors.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Because what Eisenberg did, she had one tag number, and in that tag number she had sub-tag numbers, right? So she had plastic bags within plastic bags, and it got extremely complex. But,
why? Go ahead.
I was going to say, but to Kathleen Zellner's credit, she was able to sort it out and put it all on the table and proved conclusively that the Manitowoc County gravel pit contained human cut burnt cremains. No question. Human cut burnt cremains. They were toast. The state.
She'd be able to compare cut marks from all bones to see if they were made by the same instrument.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's not just the DNA. There's more things she can do with that.
Correct. And Milbillie just said a really important point, and that's why if you read the testimonies, Paul, every time Dean Strang was saying, "Well, what type of cutting instrument do you think would have caused these fine cut blade?" Fallon kept on saying, "I object. She's not a specialist in coming up to decide what type of instrument. So in other words, every time Strang got close to trying to get a definitive answer from Eisenberg, Fallon objected at every possibility. But in her report, she wrote there was a kerf, saw marks, and hesitation cut marks.
That's why during pretrial, when I think it's Buting is talking to Colborne, and he gets to start talking about the day that he went to talk to Stephen Avery, and Kratz shuts that shit down right away. Because their timeline is off.
Oh, completely off. And you see, Kathleen Zellner knows what the weak points of the state are. And she's going to really hammer them big time. And the actual crime scene itself is a complete joke. The processing,
according to them, the crime scene is 2.5 miles wide.
Yes.
In which direction? Who knows?
Yes. And Milbillie, it's so funny because in Ken Kratz's book, he actually goes, Paul, he goes, well, if those bones happen to be, if those cremains at the Manitowoc County gravel pit happen to be Teresa's, well, Stephen put them there. So Stephen's playing Santa Claus with all these human cremains. He's going all over the place, right? But what you don't find, and Milbillie will back me up on this, Cuss Road, nothing.
Yeah,
nope.
Absolutely nothing.
On the paper, nothing.
Couple of quick questions before we wind things up. I've got somebody's put here. Where was a box of teeth found? I've never heard about a box of teeth.
No.
There's a broken tooth found.
Yeah, 2 fragments that were stuck together apparently.
Yeah, this was the freaky thing. All the crowns of the teeth were gone.
Yeah.
Gone, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, either they were all burnt, severely burnt, but the only thing that remained were the roots of 2 teeth. That is underneath the jawline.
Exactly.
And Dr. Simley had to super glue them together and compare them to photos, X-ray photos, when Teresa Horbach went to the dentist, and he goes, "Oh, it's a sort of a match, right?" He wasn't prepared.
Did he super glue them together so they would match?
Correct. He wasn't prepared to say it was a match. However, Ken Kratz goes, typical scientist. It doesn't want to be 100%. He goes, "Yep, that's a match." But the orthodontist said, "I'm not so sure about this," right? Yeah. And if I could just make the quick comment,
sure.
The mere factor that item BZ existed, that is, there was some charred muscle tissue remaining on the bones, to me indicates that Teresa Horbach was not burnt in a professional crematorium. Because a professional crematorium, if the temperatures are right, there should have been no tissues. All the tissues go. They all get burnt. The mere factor that some tissues remained tends to indicate that, and even Kathleen Zellner said, she likely was cut to pieces and put in a burn barrel and burnt in a burn barrel. And if body parts are pressed together with other components, it could survive some of the direct heat. And that's why you've got some muscle tissue that survived.
Yeah. The other question would be then, as regards the lawyers, so Dean and Jerry have, even at the trial, they had Eisenberg's list that lists these other bones that they found with the cut marks.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But Kathleen Zellner was the one that sort of like went through it with a fine-tooth comb. But Strang did a great job with Eisenberg, because even Eisenberg had to go, yeah, there are 3 locations. They all contain cut, burnt bones. I really can't tell which is the primary burn site, right?
Eventually,
That was awesome. So Strang did a really good job.
Yeah. And there was no hacksaw blade or anything similar to that ever found in Stephen Avery's burn pit, but there were some of the cremains from the burn pit with cut marks on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the scary thing is, and Milbillie will back me up on this, there was a pelvic fragment in the Manitowoc County gravel pit that had 2 cut marks on either side of the pelvic bone. Right? And that is terrifying, that you would cut a pelvic bone directly up and down on both sides of a joint. And that pelvic fragment was actually, the 2 bones were stuck together, right? They'd maintain anatomical integrity, right? Because they were cut on both sides of the pelvis. The only way you're going to cut like that is if you've already cut the legs off. You can't get access to the pelvis any other way.
Yeah.
So this tends to suggest that maybe Bushman found a torso at Cuss Road. I know I'm only speculating, but it seems to me like most people will agree that to try and burn a torso is very difficult to do, because you've got all the organs, etc., etc. But the important thing is there was no skeletal continuity, right? So you know that when there's a house fire and someone is cremated in a house fire, you find the head, the shoulders, the ribs, the pelvis, the leg. Here, it was a whole collection of bones, as if someone mixed them all together, someone got a scoop and put them in the burn pit.
Exactly.
That's the difference. Not all bones. They were very deceptive when they showed the skeleton, right? When you saw the pictures of the skeleton, the jury goes, oh my God, they found a whole rib, a whole... No, the biggest fragments were centimeters. They were all tiny fragments.
Smokes and mirrors.
Yeah.
Correct, Milbillie. Correct.
But one of the significant things about the pelvis bone is it called the ilium snitch or something? It shows that it's a female bone. Just by looking at it, you can tell it's a female.
Yeah, it's a notch.
A different notch. That's it. I remember it was McGilla that did a presentation with the dude about it, because he was very keen on that, and I'm sure lots of other people have focused in on that aspect of it. Listen, Milbillie, is that daylight coming through your window? No. We're gonna let you go, pal. We're gonna let you go, pal. I know you said you're on Aussie time, but honestly, we're gonna let you go. And if you could both join me next week, if you're available, Milbillie, come and join us. We will definitely go for the so it's 7:30 your time is my 11 o'clock. I think we've established that, haven't we? Yeah.
Yes.
So I must remember, and what I'd like to do is to look at the, dare I say it, what things, looking back now, would Kathleen Zellner have done differently? Because I'm sure that she, well, as we know with that statement about Ken Kratz, in all her years as a prosecutor, she has never ever come across anybody quite like him. And I'm sure that can be said now of the way that the state has handled this, even to the extent of providing her with a CASO report minus the last 2 pages in the hope that she wouldn't find out about these bones being handed back. So,
if I could, Paul, if I could just make a quick comment.
Sure.
Because I wrote it down. Now think about this, right?
Yeah.
It was Jeremy Hawkins, Wiegert, Fallon, and Garn that got all the bones, the packet of bones, and they used Eisenberg's report, and they went through every bag and they pulled out the human bones, right? Now, there wasn't a forensic anthropologist with them, but they were able to get the human bones, including the human bones from the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which proved that there were human cremains at the Manitowoc County gravel pit from the burn barrel, Yonder burn barrel number 2, and from the burn pit. They collected them and gave them to, I think it was called the Whiting
Funeral Home.
Yeah, funeral home.
Sorry, forgive my ignorance then, I apologize. But does that mean that even some of the bones that were displayed in the pizza box, they've been given back as well?
Yes. They're the bones that came from the burn pit.
Yeah.
So that box of bones are the cremains that were sifted.
Yes.
Right? So the majority of the cremains came from the burn pit that allegedly was sifted, and there are no in situ photographs.
I want to know
of the whole sifting process.
How common is it that the people that are investigating, finding, are the same people that are then sifting?
No.
Yes. No, it's completely bizarre.
During the whole Cuss Road fiasco, Jeremy Hawkins is at the station with the barrels. You hear him over the transmission saying, I need a dolly for some barrels, because he's moving around. And then later on, you hear them say, okay, Ertles and the crime lab are on the way to the station. They asked to give him a heads up when he's almost halfway there.
Sure.
There's a lot of shenanigans going on. But look at Ertl.
Yeah.
What did Ertl say? He goes, I never took photographs because the crime scene was obviously disturbed.
Yeah.
And you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, you haven't sifted the cremains yet. How can you know why it was disturbed? Because he took one look at it and thought,
it's already been gathered up. But it's just because somebody dumped the bones, it looks like that. Or the only other possibility I can think of is that, yes, somebody did take photographs and they're in Tom Fassbender's personal possession, being used as a coffee coaster along with the CD until he had to hand that back. You know, it's.
We can talk for hours on that one. Yep, correct. Yep. Correct.
Listen, I'm going to say cheerio. I'm going to let Milbillie get off to get some kip. Enjoy the rest of the day, Milbillie. Once you've had a bit of sleep, and have a good evening, Dr. Silkman. Have a couple of wines.
Thank you very much.
Toast me with a couple of wines or something, or whatever it is that you like to have a tipple of. Anyway, I'm going to say, I'll leave you gentlemen to say cheerio to the people that have joined us. Milbillie, off you go.
Later, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming.
And thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye for now.
Cheers.
Cheers.